Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements.
And let me say right off the top.
Oh, my. Here we go.
Donald Trump is doing some good things.
What?
Let me explain. He did
okay?
He did a long interview.
You don't have COVID, do you?
Nope.
Not
he did
long
he did
COVID?
No. He did a long interview with Lex Friedman on Lex Friedman's podcast.
Okay.
A lot of interesting stuff.
He's been doing a lot of podcasts.
And I'm going to get to that.
All right. Glad you
on
are.
that podcast, he admitted that he lost the 2020 election.
Well, that's a huge step forward.
A huge step.
You think Kari Lake will admit that she lost the 2020?
If she was smart, but she's not. So he was interviewing. He said, I won 63 million votes. They said if you win the same number of votes, then you'll win. He said, but I won more than that, and I lost by a whisker.
He did lose by a whisker.
But the fact that came out of his mouth, was amazing.
He did lose by a whisker, and there were several reasons why, and all of them are are interesting reasons, and a lot of that will probably play out in this election as well.
Yes, but I was thrilled from the standpoint of, okay, so he's done relitigating the 2020 election. Because he understands, at the time that he said it, we had 64 days before the election. We're at 60. We're 60 days out.
Yeah.
We're in the sprint.
Well, there's so many more things.
As Donna Brazile wrote in a memo, this is a snap election.
Well, Donna Brazile has been the subject of a lot of talking points over the last several days that I've heard.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, specifically how she shared the debate questions. Several years ago.
Well, and, let's assume that they're going to do it again.
Well, she does work for ABC, so you can only assume that that's going to happen again.
Do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, because my understanding is Kamala. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Well, because
I am so
Kamala.
Round of applause. All right.
Well, Joe Biden has said it incorrectly many times, and so has Kamala or Kamala or Kamala, whatever.
Kamala. No, now you've got me saying it wrong. Kamala.
She's very nervous. She's very nervous, and she was trying to change the parameters of the debate, trying to make sure that it was open mic night on ABC News, and she didn't win that.
Right.
Because Donald Trump, to his credit, said, "Hey, I'll debate you once, I'll debate you twice, I'll debate you 3 times. Let's have a whole month of debates every single week." No. Yeah. She knows she can't do that.
Right. Well, so I think
we're a week away from that. Less than
that.
Week.
It's coming up in 5 days.
The 10th.
Yeah. So we're now in the sprint. Trump seems to be focused on. He's still doing a lot of things that are weird, but he is actually saying things, trying to stay more on message. I thought the interview with Lex Friedman was very instructive. And as you pointed out, he's been doing a lot of podcasts. He's really leaning in on ways to reach low information voters. Not that podcast listeners are low information, but there's a lot of podcasts. We would hope
our listeners are not low information.
I think our podcast audience is very different than
just
others.
A little bit.
But there's a lot of young men in particular who listen to cultural podcasts that aren't necessarily political. And Lex Friedman's not a political guy. He's a psychologist, and
sure.
He's got interesting, and so for Trump to go on these podcasts and appear with influencers, whatever platform they're on, that's and in these long form interviews, that's a great contrast to Kamala Harris because
she's not going on anything.
She's wearing headphones and has her phone to her ear at the same time in order to avoid any even shouted questions by the media.
Yeah.
It's absurd. And I think we,
Do you think that it's finally having an effect? Like people are finally starting to, it's after Labor Day, it's opening, we call it our opening day, that people are starting to pay attention and understanding that, the Empress has no clothes, that she is just, she's just an empty suit every which way because of these different factors.
Yeah.
Because of her inability to even do an interview. Her interview on CNN with Dana Bash was just ridiculous.
It was absurd. She didn't answer.
She didn't answer a single question. All those questions were scripted, and it was like Dana was giving her the answers before she answered it.
Now,
and
you
then
said
she
this
had,
in 2020. Did you learn? Is it because of experience? I mean, she lays out 3 different off ramps for her
which
to
way
take,
do you want to go?
and she doesn't take any of them. She says, "I have the same values as I've always had."
Well,
That
that's
doesn't answer the
instructive.
question.
Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
well,
that. Because if you do have the same values, then socialism is on the rise in America.
It is astounding to me. So we have said in the past,
More left-wing than Bernie Sanders.
yeah,
ladies
she is
and
the
gentlemen.
most left-wing, most liberal, most progressive candidate on the top of the ticket ever. But even beyond that, she is the least policy-centric candidate in history.
Well, if you go to her website, there are no policies.
There are no policies on her website.
And she keeps
We are
releasing
60 days away from an election.
But she keeps releasing these elements of an economic plan is complete and total idiocy, like economic illiteracy, in terms of what it'll do to the economy.
I don't know. I mean, she was in New Hampshire and she said she wanted to raise the capital gains tax 10 points less than what Biden did.
Oh, she's making a
So
shift.
she's separating herself a
Yeah,
little
she's
bit
making
there.
a shift. How about the tax on unrealized assets?
That is insane.
Yeah. How about the $50,000 tax credit for startup businesses? So I'm going to give you taxpayer money to start a business. Then I'm going to tax you into the hill.
Yeah, right.
Because if you build your business and you build your asset base, I'm going to tax you 45%.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is astounding to me how, they really, it does give you a little bit of a sense of how Democrats view voters. They
With
think,
contempt.
Yeah, they think that, we don't have to tell them anything.
No.
We just have to have joy.
There's no joy in communism.
I mean, it is literally, it's
only misery.
It is we are the happy people. He is the weird person. So, because she's even shifted away from the threat to democracy line that Biden was always using to now just calling him weird and that he's kind of a buffoon and
he's unserious is what she's been saying lately. Have you met your vice president pick?
Obviously,
in terms of unseriousness,
obviously he's got he's in some ways his own worst enemy.
Yes, he can be that for sure.
And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 60 days. But yes, I think she's hit the apex of her popularity. It's now just going to start to go downhill. We have already seen that happen in some of the swing state polls where she was leading, and now everything is basically tied. And Nate Silver's projections, where they had her at 56% likely or 57% likely to win, it's flipped just completely the opposite in the last week and a half or so.
And why do you think that is?
Well, he just does his is just a formulaic thing that he's just looking at polling and plugging stuff in.
But he's been pretty accurate, and he's no fan of Donald Trump's.
No, in fact, I learned something.
He would self-describe himself as just a traditional liberal.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah.
He's spoken to a lot of YPO events. I've seen him. I've met him. He spoke to our event in D.C. several years ago. Nice guy, great guy.
Mm-hmm. Smart guy,
really smart, and doesn't make up his polling like Simon does.
So he's fairly picky about what polls he includes in his models because he wants them to be as predictive and accurate as possible. And it's hard to be predictive, but the thing that is fascinating, and this is something I learned from our buddies at the Ruthless podcast, the Ruthless Variety Show.
The Ruthless Variety Show. That's right.
Josh Holmes was saying that at this time in 2020, Nate Silver had Biden at 89% likely to win.
Yeah.
So
do you still think there's, in terms of the polling, I think this is, that the Trump voter has gone quiet again.
I think there's probably some truth to that, but I also think that it's just harder.
Because Biden was at over 80%, but Trump still came within, like he said, a whisker.
Right. Right.
So it seems to me that was the panic that ensued within the Democratic
keep in mind,
Party.
When Nate Silver was in 2016, Nate Silver was still at New York Times. He had it at 20. He had Trump winning at 20%.
538. Yeah.
So I mean, those are
even he has said it that the Trump voter
they're tough.
It's hard to capture them.
Well, I think it's just hard to capture really good polling these days anyway. I mean, who the heck has the willingness to talk on a phone for 20 minutes with a pollster?
Yeah, well, I mean, my
Not
phone rings with spam 6 times a day.
Yeah. So
and half of it's polling.
Yeah. So polling is challenging. I mean, you do the best you can, but you have to look at other things. Not attendance at rallies. I don't think that matters.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We saw that the last presidential election.
I mean,
you can hide in your basement.
Yeah.
For 6 months.
Yeah. So it'll be.
There was a Joe Biden sighting, by the way, this week.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, he went speaking at a Harris rally, with her sitting on the side, kind of crossing her arms, hoping that he wouldn't say anything.
I'm assuming
non-lucid,
they ushered him off quickly.
And he told the reporters, some reporters were shouting something at him. He said that he's not allowed, Secret Service will not allow him to mingle with the crowd anymore. And it's like, no, that's not really
Guessing
why.
That's not Secret Service saying that.
Yeah, it's so that Mr. Biden does not say anything inflammatory or
incoherent. Yeah.
Which I guess the speech was relatively incoherent as well. A lot of shouting.
Well, I mean, so
he's such an angry old man.
Well, wouldn't you be if you got a coup leveled against you?
I mean, all those knives in his back.
Yeah.
She's just standing there off to the side.
What's
cackling.
Yeah, what's interesting is
I don't get it.
That there's still a lot of Biden drama. I mean, his trial is supposed to start today, I think.
No, he just pleaded.
Oh, did he plead? Is he not?
Yeah, National Review and other outlets reported earlier that he pleaded guilty.
Oh, so he's avoiding trial.
He's avoiding trial because of everything that would come out on the tax evasion question.
Interesting. He's pleading guilty. What are they going to? What's he?
I don't know.
They don't know the terms yet.
No, just that.
Just
he
avoiding
had
trial.
reached an agreement. To plead guilty.
I know that Biden has said he's not going to commute his sentences or pardon him, but I kind of think that might be in the cards in the future.
I still think Joe Biden leaves office at the end of this month or beginning of next month.
You still there?
With a whole host of pardons just ready for people, including his brother, including his daughter, including anyone that the Trump administration would feel justified going after.
You are pardoned from anything that is yet to happen.
And his probable Attorney General, Mike Davis. So I would imagine that is in the offing here in the next several weeks.
Well,
and if I'm wrong, hey, great. But I think tactically that would be
and
interesting move.
I think that it's likely that Kamala's numbers are going to continue to slide a little bit. Then
the more she's out there, the more she's off script, the more people know her, the more policies that she introduces to the body politic.
Well, so this is what's
interesting
is the debate in June, which caused the demise of Joe Biden.
The staged debate in June
was the most consequential debate in presidential history.
Oh, of course.
At least since televised debates. I mean, it may be that JFK, Nixon. I don't know. No.
Well,
Even this was more.
I would say you have, maybe not in order, but JFK Nixon, because it was the one that first televised debates.
It was the first
yeah,
televised,
the first. And if you listened to that debate, you
Right.
thought that Nixon won. If you watched it, you were sure that JFK won. Reagan's second debate with Walter Mondale,
Yep.
which as the Reagan movie so deftly illustrated, was a make or break debate for him, and he handled himself well and delivered one of the greatest lines in debate history,
Right.
against Walter Mondale.
And went on to win 49 states.
Yes. So and then I would say the debate in June, where they kind of wheeled Joe Biden out there, knowing full well that he was incapacitated, but wanted to show the country how incapacitated he was, and then a very dutiful press swung into gear to find the alternative, who was waiting in the wings, along with her puppet master Barack Obama.
I mean, I know you think this was all a setup. I'm not certain it was.
Oh, come
But
on!
I think that
Connect the dots, Sean.
yeah, but the
Why would you have a
full
debate in
freak out,
June?
with a full freak out of the Democrat establishment and the media?
It was fake.
You think it was fake?
I just think the
I
whole
don't think
thing was
so.
staged.
I don't think so.
They needed a reason to torpedo him before the convention, and they got it. And then they gave him a short little leash to go out there and try to resurrect himself in those 2 weeks. And then they pulled the plug.
I think you're giving them way too much credit.
I think the Democrats are ruthless.
I
so.
think that this was a situation of circumstance that they definitely took advantage of. But this next debate is going to be pretty consequential, because this is the first big test for Kamala Harris. It wasn't the interview with CNN, because that wasn't a test.
Well, she was.
This is the first big test, because
That interview was horrible.
it was absurd.
And what was really amazing was the press trying to make it into something that it wasn't. At least, CNN, of course, thought it was the greatest debate.
yeah.
It was the greatest interview ever. But, I mean, to have Walt sitting there kind of high up in a chair, she's sunk down.
security blanket.
Her little puppy.
Yeah. I don't know. But I think the debate will be. It could be a turning point in the campaign.
Fuzzy white
It
puppy.
could also be just a wash. It really could go, because she could do decent. He could have a couple, flare-ups. Who knows? I mean, these are always unpredictable.
Well, I seem to get a feeling that he is preparing for this more than he has in the past. And with Tulsi Gabbard, which has been announced that she's involved in preparations. And she delivered one of the great zingers.
Yeah, but the problem is that
in debate history
Tulsi
as well.
Gabbard came at Harris basically from the left.
Well, and she came at her with facts.
Well, right, but from the
so
left.
Your
I mean,
feelings
I just don't know how.
are
don't know.
irrelevant.
Right, but I don't know how. I mean, look. If he'll take any advice, that's great. But as far as tactically, they're going to have to come up with something different than what Tulsi used, because she was playing to the hardcore progressives who didn't like the fact that Kamala Harris locked up a bunch of criminals.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't pretend to know exactly the best issues to hit her on. I just know that name calling's not going to work. That denigrating her race or her gender or her intellect is not going to work.
Nope.
He's got to stick to
that will turn people against you immediately. Especially, I mean, he is losing among suburban women in a big way.
Well, he needs to do is say, we don't know what Kamala Harris believes.
Yeah.
Because she's not willing to tell the American people any policy prescriptions. And that gives him the opening to tick through what his top issues will be.
Yeah.
He can say, I'm going to secure the border. I'm going to fix the economy by, XXXXX. And he can say, she was in charge of the border, a failure. She hasn't said what she's going to do going forward. You talk about the economy, you talk about crime. Those are things that would be useful for him to do.
Yeah. We'll see if he takes your advice.
Well,
You know,
he's not.
maybe we
asking.
should fly you down to Mar-a-Lago.
No thanks.
I think that'd be a great thing.
I do want to shift now to the Senate races.
Okay.
Because the presidential race is basically, we'll just call it dead even, right? As far as based on polling,
If it's dead even, Trump is the internals are moving Trump's direction. If
Probably.
it's dead even.
So
And that's going to create a panic over the next several weeks. If it really goes Trump's way during the debate, then the October surprise will be in the offing.
yeah. So
Hey, did you know the Russians are interfering with the election already?
well, not only that, but did you see that Putin said that he supports Kamala Harris for president?
There you go.
I mean, it's just it's so
And so
crazy.
does
The
President
day-
Xi. Imagine
the day
that.
after the Department of Justice indicts a couple Russian nationals for funneling $10 million into right-wing media, claiming that they were there to help elect Donald Trump, Putin undercuts the entire story by saying, "Oh no, we support Kamala Harris."
We support
Miss Harris.
Ms. Harris.
She has a very fascinating laugh, and you know the American people will decide, and we'll respect that decision. Well, they're gonna try to help the American people decide, as they have been doing for decades. And that's
Yeah.
the thing that I just continue to go crazy on, is that people act as if this is some kind of a new thing. The Russians have been, the Soviets before
Of course.
have been involved in interfering in our elections and in our culture and in our society since the 40s.
Yeah.
I mean,
The movie Reagan illustrated that.
yes. Go
Completely.
see the movie.
Completely.
We're gonna get to that. I'm gonna do a little recap on that. But if you look at it, so you have basically tied in the polls in the swing states for the presidential election, and then you have these Senate races, and Pennsylvania is now tied in the Senate race. You have a poll out today that shows that he is beating Tester in Montana.
I've been getting emails from Tester for some
From
reason.
Tester?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Interesting.
I'm on some Democratic
Interesting.
strange
Simon
list.
did that to you.
But you see the pollings like a month ago, and everybody was kind of panicking on the Senate races. Once people start paying attention, those polls are going to shift, and they're going to get.
Well, and
They're going to change a lot between
Yeah.
now and election day.
well because in most cases you've got, like in Montana,
Bernie Moreno's going to win.
in Montana,
in Ohio.
Pennsylvania, Ohio, you've got incumbent Democrats who are universally known, and so early polling is going to favor them. And so now the campaign's in full swing, things are happening, developing. You know, you've got McCormick is now tied with Casey in Pennsylvania. I don't know what the polling is in Ohio lately.
It's within 5, I think.
So
So the
it's-
last thing I saw, Sherrod Brown's up, but Sherrod Brown's running away from every question regarding the Harris-Walz administration, his ties to Harris. So I think Bernie will be in good shape once people start paying attention.
You've got Sheehy leading Tester, which is a shift because Tester's been way up in previous polls,
Well, Tester's just a good old boy from Montana.
and he's going to be tough. He's still going to be tough.
Yeah,
to beat.
he's got tons of money.
You've got
tons.
Larry Hogan tied or leading in Maryland.
Well, and I was on some kind of thread the other day, and all these right-wing crazies were like, "Oh, he's because he made a statement the other day. He's going to be a contrarian within the Senate if he's elected."
Right.
And people are like, "Oh, he's a rhino," and this, that, and the other. I'm like, take the win.
Yes.
You take the win.
Oh my gosh.
On the stuff that matters, he's going to be 100% in line with the
100%.
Republicans. On the Trump tax cuts, he's going to be 100% in line.
Yep.
And that's what's at stake. Take the win.
Right.
Get the majority.
it
Take the win.
drives-
Don't worry about the rest of it.
It drives me crazy how our side just shoots each other in the head.
No, because
with
the
no
way,
good
and the way
reason.
the Democrats have won over the years, going back, to 2006 is, or even with Bill Clinton, is taking a page out of the Republican playbook, which Kamala is trying,
Right.
but she's failing. Thankfully, the press is like onto her. Even CNN called her out the other day on her new policy on the border and everything else. But they take a page out of there. They find candidates who are willing to run within the margins as moderates. They get them elected. They douse them with a bunch of money, pay off all their debts, and then those people are just going to vote however they're going to vote.
They'll vote with the Democrat Party line on the stuff that matters.
On the stuff that matters, and then they'll give them a window to shift back to what they need for their states come election time.
Right. So
it drives me nuts.
Yeah. So we've got
Larry Hogan would be a great senator, be a huge flip.
Yeah.
He was a great governor. He's a nice guy.
Yeah. Even Nevada is tightened up. And
that's a tough race. It's going to be a tough one. That's been tougher than what we thought. I'm not quite sure if he's the right candidate.
I don't know if he is or not.
Great story.
I think he's got a great
amazing story. Good guy.
It's yet to be seen, but it is tightened. And then we have Arizona.
You're on some kind of like middle of the road news thing this week.
I did a hit with Dan Abrams on News Nation.
News Nation. Does anybody watch News Nation?
I have no idea.
Is that Cuomo's brother?
It is
Chris Cuomo's on there.
Chris Cuomo's on there. Yeah. He's on News Nation. In fact, his show is right before Dan Abrams.
Okay. See, I've never watched News Nation. Of course, I don't watch cable news anymore.
Yeah, I don't watch TV, and so it's weird to go on TV.
But did you watch yourself after you did?
I did.
Okay.
I wanted to show that the kids wanted to see me on TV. I was not kind.
You were not kind.
I was trying to give advice. I think, because the whole setup
what did he ask you?
The whole setup was that there's a Fox poll that shows she's down 15 points. Now, I think that's an outlier. I don't think she's down 15 points.
15.
I think it's closer to like 7. And I don't know that she has the ability to pull it off. And I pointed out that part of the issue is that this is a problem of her own making. He said, how is it possible that a police organization endorses the Democrat the week after endorsing Trump for president? And I said, well,
very easy.
She called her primary opponent, Sheriff Mark Lamb, a coward. And 13 of the 15 sheriffs across the state, county sheriffs, put out a statement denouncing her for that.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? APACZ, the law enforcement guys, stick together, and they're like, no, we're not gonna tolerate that. And I pointed out they're political. They make a political, they have a political thought, and they're like, Gallego's got a bunch of money. He's got the momentum. He's way up in the polls. Why wouldn't we endorse him?
Yeah.
And
probably, knowing Ruben, he probably asked for their endorsement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing him, he reached out to him and said,
I'm sure that
I would love to get your endorsement. And here's what I'm thinking. And here's what I need. And here's what I'm committed to doing. He's a good politician.
Yeah.
He's not dumb.
Well, and I still don't understand why Lake goes on any right-wing news. She was on Newsmax complaining about the debate. And it's going to be moderators that are NPR. Well,
so what?
So what? You can't be the candidate who is demanding that your opponent debate you last election.
Yeah.
Then be the person who is demanding that Ruben Gallego debate you in the primary of all, but avoid debating
Sheriff Lamb.
Yeah. And now say, "Oh, I don't think it's fair."
Yeah.
Well, people don't like whiners.
Yeah.
That's
because it's all a grift. Yeah. She is a grifter.
Now,
and the
full disclosure,
grift is almost over.
I think I might have said this on the podcast before. I did endorse her.
Yeah. What possessed you? What possessed you? Was it the money?
I agree.
Was it the recording? Did she come to you and
She did
present
not.
you
There was-
with a secret recording
no
at the Collins pub?
There were no threats. She asked nicely. And
I'm sorry. I
agreed.
just had to put that in.
But I am frustrated with the way that she runs campaigns, the way that she is a candidate. But on the issues, I'm with her significantly more than I'm with Gallego.
Yeah.
So it just, in some ways, it's like, I don't think there's a choice. If I believe in the values that I have. Now, I can be frustrated that she's not campaigning in a way that's going to win.
Do you get the feeling that there's going to be a lot of no, like, I'm not voting for either one of them?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's it. Actually,
I mean, especially amongst independents and
I think
and
that this may,
conservative Republicans who actually have principles.
yeah. So
to say, I'm not voting for either one of them. I'm writing in,
or just leaving it blank.
I'm writing in John Kyle. You know why?
So-
because he's still my senator.
Right.
That's not a bad idea.
In the governor's race in 2022, there were 37,000 ballots that were cast in which the governor's line was blank. That's not
amazing.
write-ins,
That's just blank.
just blank.
I'm not
Blank.
voting for either one of them.
And I believe that she has made things worse for herself with voters who she should be able to appeal to, who cannot stomach Rubin, who are going to leave that line blank again in the Senate race. And I think it's going to be more than 37,000. And so this is a situation in which
That's
Donald Trump-
That's been my point for a long time, and that is she has the ability for goodness, but she keeps using her skills for badness.
well, she just
doesn't.
she's throwing away an opportunity because she thinks that being a Trump mini-me is how you win, and she has not won based on that. I mean, she won the primaries, yeah, whatever. But it's meaningless if you lose the general.
Yeah. Well, you got to go to work.
Yeah.
You got to
mean,
really do the work.
The money problem, the Democrats are significantly outspending the Republicans on this. I mean, she's not raising nearly enough money.
But then you have the traditional Republican constituencies that are just taking a pass.
Yeah.
The
Well-
chambers, you haven't seen the Phoenix chamber or the Arizona chamber come out and help her in any way. The Free Enterprise Clause endorsed her, but I don't think there's any money coming her way from that regard. She looks at those groups with contempt, and she's kind of open about it.
Well, I mean, this is
Right?
the same person who basically said, if you're a McCain voter, get the hell out. I mean, she's tried to apologize for that, but she hasn't really.
And to your point, she's just simply echoing, the feud between the McCains and the Trumps.
Yeah,
right.
that's the thing is that, I mean,
which
has,
got
is
continued
nothing-
this week, and it's like,
well, and
whatever.
the fact that it wasn't only that she get the hell out because she thought that was popular with the, because Trump said it. Well, that's not a good reason. You were running for office in Arizona.
Yeah.
In Arizona.
Yeah.
And then
This is the
then
state
after
of
she
Goldwater, McCain, Kyle.
yeah,
go
after
down
she wins the
list.
primary, she goes to CPAC and she says, "We drove a stake through the heart of the McCain machine."
Oh yeah,
What? McCain machine?
there was never a McCain machine. I can vouch for that.
It's
The
whole thing
McCain
is
machine,
absurd.
with all due respect to the senator, was a more broadly national machine. It wasn't a state machine, and the state became ignited around the time of the election.
Yeah.
And there were people within both Democrat and Republican circles who just loved John McCain, and he was an amazing retail politician. You told a story, I believe, yesterday at lunch when we were having lunch, about something that happened in Shola when you first encountered John McCain, and how he had this ability to be both self-effacing and to kind of put people,
Yeah,
on,
I mean,
put people in a different light and joke with people, in a way that just that was humorous and disengaging
and authentic.
and authentic.
I mean, the thing about the reason, and this is what there's so many people who think that there's someone like Kari Lake
Yeah.
looks at politics and thinks it's performative art. And that's where they get it completely wrong. Because the successful politicians are the ones who are authentic.
And the ones who are not afraid to go anywhere and speak to anyone.
Yes.
I guess
And also
I
smart
can
enough
talk about this now.
not to go on go places where they're not going to get any votes. I mean, Stephen Shattuck, the elder, wrote in the book How to Win an Election.
The elder. Yes.
Go where the ducks are.
Yeah.
Guess what, Carrie? There's not one
my desk.
freaking duck on Newsmax.
Nope.
Not one viewer of Newsmax is gettable.
You should.
They're already there.
You should go on NPR.
Yes, absolutely. She should go on NPR. She
CNN.
should go on CNN.
Everywhere.
She should go on MSNBC.
Yes. Take it.
Go on every local news broadcast here.
Absolutely. Go speak to the Arizona Chamber and its members. Go speak to all the chambers and the members. I don't think she's done that.
I mean, look, she would do better to pick up the phone herself and start calling independent voters one-on-one. Because she could win people over.
Yeah.
One-on-one conversations.
We've said it in ad nauseum. She has the skill sets for goodness, but she uses them for badness.
I don't know if it's badness as much as just
ignorance,
just squandered.
Just squandering.
Okay,
yeah,
we need to get to speaking of people who are. All right, so
yes,
I know that you have been a longtime viewer, an actual friend of Tucker Carlson.
Yes, we are friendly. I wouldn't call him a friend.
Okay, I met Tucker years ago.
He was in town last night.
He was with Russell Brand.
Yeah,
big crowd. I used to have respect for him.
Yeah,
I do not.
Over his last two guests.
Definitely.
Yeah. I listened to both of those podcasts and I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
It is.
No, I'm not in disagreement. I think Jeffrey Sachs, the 2 podcasts ago, I thought some of the stuff coming out of his mouth was unbelievable. And the last one where was it Dan?
Daryl Cooper.
Daryl Cooper had some of the most outrageous things to say about World War II and the Holocaust and Winston Churchill. And I was like, what the heck?
Yeah. It was, I mean, it is.
I turned it off. I didn't go through it. I was like, this is complete idiocy.
I forced myself to listen to at least the World War II portion.
I listened to the Sachs one the whole way, and his apologetic nature about China and Russia, it's just
yeah.
Like what?
Well, and the thing, so let's go back to this indictment that the Department of Justice did on these 2 Russian nationals who steered $10 million to this company.
I thought you were going to talk about the Chinese nationals who work for Governor Hochul.
Yeah, right. So they're all over.
It's all over the place.
Infiltration is happening everywhere. Yeah. I mean, the Iranians had people posing as students, giving out money for the Hamas protest. Yeah. So those 3, Russia, China, and Iran, are deeply embedded in the United States, trying to sow discord.
Yeah.
And, Department of Justice did their job. They found somebody who was funneling money to a company, a content company called Tenant, who happens to have a handful of right-wing podcasters in their stable. Benny Johnson and Tim Pool and some others.
Are the Russians funding Star Worldwide Networks?
They couldn't get to Dave Pratt.
No. How about the Chinese?
Not even a chance.
The Iranians?
Not even a chance.
Awesome. So we're safe.
We're
ladies
safe,
and gentlemen. We're safe
at this point. We're safe. And if Dave Pratt starts paying us
like
come on this
millions of dollars.
Yeah, then we'll know something might be up, right?
Just to digress really quick, because I know where you're going with this, but when I heard about the indictment of the deputy chief of staff of Governor Hochul of New York.
He was the deputy chief of staff?
She was the deputy chief of staff. She was fired last March because of impropriety, they said. They made a statement. She was fired March 2023 for impropriety. So they knew then that the jig was up in terms of her being a Russian agent. And what I am amazed at is that these people who are, or excuse me, a Chinese agent, these people are Chinese, working for the Chinese or working for the Russians, and they're getting paid, and they go buy their $5 million house, and they buy their Ferrari, and they buy their $3 million condo in Honolulu. It's like, you people are so stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, you really are the dumbest people in the world. You think you're smart, but you're really dumb.
No, you just painted a target on your back.
Well,
anyway, so you have these guys, and the podcasters have disavowed. They've said we were victims, we didn't know, and a couple people have said Jonah Goldberg said, I could believe that Benny Johnson took money from the Russians to undermine the United States. I could also believe that Benny Johnson didn't know anything about the Russians and undermine the United States for shits and giggles. So there's definitely not great blood between Jonah Goldberg and Benny
Jonah
Johnson.
Goldberg also has a publication called The Dispatch, which has its own issues.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Calls itself conservative, but it's not.
There is a pretty broad tent in the overall conservative, ecosystem. Some are a little bit crazier. But this is where I worry, because Tucker has been, blatantly pro-Putin.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether he's being paid by the Russians or not. I kind of doubt it.
I don't think so.
But it's not. But I realize it's not just pro-Putin. He is on this path to just try to undermine the United States.
Yeah, this sort of alternative history, alternative foreign policy prospectus.
Yeah, I mean,
it takes away from some of the other podcasts that he does that are great.
Right,
and I'll be serious. I'll listen to one. I'll be like, hey, that was awesome, and really enjoy that. And then this one, I'm like, I'm just not going to say anything.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm totally with you.
He says about Daryl Cooper. He says
his intro,
that he builds the episode as the conversation with, quote, the best and most honest popular historian working in the United States today. What? And then he says, I want people to know who you are, and I want you to be widely recognized as the most important historian in the United States.
Yeah.
And this is because, and he's saying this as a result of where this guy comes from on World War II, which is, Hitler wasn't the bad guy. He didn't want war. He was trying to get peace. It was Winston Churchill that got us all wound up in the war. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, Winston Churchill.
That is one of the most ignorant and stupid.
Yeah, I mean,
perspectives ever.
I would give.
And the problem is that Tucker never challenges him. He never challenges his guests. He sort of parrots whatever they're saying.
He didn't
and that's a big problem.
Not challenge this guy. He agreed with him.
Yeah, that's insane.
And that is the problem.
No, I agree with you totally.
So in December of 1999, this is going back a ways, right? Charles Krauthammer, one of our favorite columnists.
One of the great joys of my life. Shaking Charles's hand at an event here for the Joe Foss Institute.
Yeah.
And he spoke. Were you there?
No.
We were there with the governor. And I'm digressing, but just to pay homage to him just for a second. And Sasha's like, you're going to go up and shake his hand, are you? Absolutely I am. And because when he was on Bret Baier's show, he was must-see TV because he would totally blow up everyone's perspective about what was going on, and it was so real and so good, and such a great writer too. But I digress.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
In 1999,
Charles was great.
He was, I think he was reacting to a Time magazine who had named Albert Einstein man of the century or person of the century. And he says, nope, it wasn't Einstein, it was Churchill.
I agree.
He says, why? Because only Churchill carries that absolutely required criterion, indispensability.
Yeah.
If we did not have Churchill, the world would literally be a different place. He said it would be dark, impoverished, and tortured.
Yep.
And he's right. He says, take away Churchill in 1940, on the other hand, and Britain would have settled with Hitler, or worse. Nazism would have prevailed. Hitler would have achieved what no other tyrant, not even Napoleon, had ever achieved. Mastery of Europe. Civilization would have descended into darkness, the likes which have never been known. And then he goes on, he talks about the 20th, meaning the 20th century, is a single story because history saw fit to lodge the entire episode in a single century. Totalitarianism turned out to be a cul-de-sac. It came and went. It has a beginning and an end, 1917 to 1991, which coincides with very, very nicely with the film Reagan.
Yes.
Talking about the end of totalitarianism. A run of 75 years neatly nestled into this century. That is our story. And who is the hero of that story? Who slew the dragon? Yes, it was the ordinary man, the taxpayer, the grunt who fought and won the wars. Yes, it was America and its allies. Yes, it was the great leaders, FDR, de Gaulle, Adenauer, Truman, John Paul II, Thatcher, Reagan. But above all, victory required one man without whom the fight would have been lost at the beginning. It required Winston Churchill.
I don't disagree.
Well said.
I don't disagree. I grew up with a father who was obsessed with Winston Churchill, had every book he'd ever written, and I got to, have that perspective.
Yeah.
That without Churchill, we would be living in a different world, in a different country, and just a completely different place.
And the idea,
and only Churchill could go to FDR and say, "This is what you need to do."
Yes. I mean, the idea that Churchill was a warmonger is absurd. The guy had served in World War II. He had the battle scars. He understood, or World War I. He understood that war is hell.
He was the last lion.
Yeah.
And he was consequential beyond anything that we know today. The only other person that I would say is equally as consequential is Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. Well, Churchill defeated Nazism and Ronald Reagan defeated communism. So, yeah.
So, I mean, growing up with a father who adored Churchill, he totally understood how Reagan was affecting my perspective of the world and loved it.
Right.
And so we would sit down, we would talk about it in that vein.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think Tucker's podcast with him was irresponsible.
Yeah. And
when he does that, because he's so smart and he can be so entertaining, it takes away from the really good stuff that he does. He shines the light. I mean, he had a podcast on a couple weeks ago with the brother and the sister who have shed a light to all these different vaccine injuries that are happening, to the fact that we're putting so many processed foods in our bodies, and it's creating the massive health crisis that we have in this country because of the food that we're eating.
Right.
That was great.
Yes.
And
critical.
True and critical. And then he has Jeffrey Sachs on and this guy.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Last bit before we wrap.
Bit? Oh,
college football.
Well, it is despite the turmoil and the uncertainty and the angst that we have about the political season, it is the most wonderful time of the year. And that is the return of college football. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our long national nightmare is over and college football is back. And this weekend, pro football returns as well.
That's right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
If you're a Dallas fan, you're going to be disappointed. If you're a Commanders Redskins fan, you're going to be disappointed.
If you're
a Cardinals fan, you have hope until you feel hopeless.
Yeah.
But if you're a USC Trojan fan, you walked into the weekend going, I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't know. I think if we can just keep it close, maybe we'll win. And you come out with a 27-20 win against LSU, who is favored by 4.5. So if you bet that game, if you bet USC, you did well.
Huh.
And then You had a U of A team that just looked amazing.
Dominated New Mexico.
And then what? ASU. Oh my gosh, they look great too. So very exciting time of year. You got Michigan playing Texas this weekend. USC plays Utah State. But ASU is playing Mississippi State, which should be, hopefully they show up the way they did this last weekend.
Yeah.
And U of A plays NAU, which should not be a problem.
NAU's going to
U
U
of
of
A.
A.
Yeah.
And now NAU had a huge win.
Yeah, who'd they play? Do you remember?
I don't know. They won 66-6. I think.
You know that's the other thing that I wanted to bring up. The scores, except for a couple games, were like EA Sports college football video game scores.
I mean, Tennessee Chattanooga 69-3.
Oh, yeah, it's just
Louisville
crazy.
over Austin P 62-0.
Ohio State 52-6 against Akron.
Well, even Georgia over Clemson 34-3.
Iowa 40-0 over Illinois State.
Utah beat Southern Utah 49-0.
Yeah,
Kansas over Linderwood 48-3. I mean, it's just
those are video game
big numbers.
scores.
Big numbers.
Yeah. So it's back. We're happy. USC is going to the Big House in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Trying to figure out if I'm going or not.
Really?
I have tickets, but it's a matter of getting there and everything else. It's not an easy place. It's like going to Happy Valley. You gotta really want to go there.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Flying in Detroit and rent a car, all that stuff.
Drive, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I might get more money from my tickets.
Yeah.
than going there and actually using them.
Yeah. It's probably true.
But kudos to the Arizona schools. They look great.
Yeah, so it'll be fun season. We'll see how opening weekend goes with the NFL. We'll talk about that next week.
We will talk about that.
But next week,
last week.
Strap in, folks. We're going to have post-debate analysis. So
how many times? Here's the new drinking game for anybody paying attention. How many times does Kamala say, "Excuse me, I'm speaking"? Excuse me, I'm speaking. Excuse me, I'm speaking.
Well, with the mics off, I don't know if
and
we'll
will
know.
she come out with a T-shirt that says "I'm speaking"? Because that's what they wanted to achieve with the mics being open.
Yeah. Well, she's
for him to interrupt her and for her to say her signature
So you're saying
line.
that she might stage the interruption by saying,
I
excuse
think
me,
she
I'm
has
speaking."
to because that's her thing. She can't debate on substance. She's got to find a hook.
Yeah.
And her hook against Pence, who's like the nicest, most congenial gentleman probably in politics, was, "Excuse me, I'm speaking." Like he was interrupting her, and he wasn't.
Right.
He was being almost too deferential to her.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting if she's smart, and I don't know how smart she is, but if they can figure out a way to for her to get some humor into it, take a little jab.
The
make it
moment she
funny.
cackles, it's over.
Yeah.
The moment she cackles, it's over. Yeah,
All right,
and
folks.
And hopefully he stays away from any of the
He needs to. Yeah, he needs to.
any
stay.
of the things that you listed: her race, her gender, any of that.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
He's got to just take it to the issues.
Yeah,
And the fact that she has no plan.
and the fact that Trump's administration on the things that matter most, on the foreign policy, on the domestic economy, and certainly on the border, was vastly more successful than Biden.
That's the thing. Is that he
Vastly
can
more
lean in,
successful.
he can say, "Look, she's been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. What does the country look like compared to when I was president? What do you think it's going to be if she's the next president?"
Yeah.
Just ask the question rhetorically, because that's when you allow people to draw a conclusion, and he doesn't need to tell them the conclusion.
No.
People can draw that conclusion.
No.
And the conclusions that people draw themselves are much more strongly held
Yeah,
than being told.
absolutely.
So, all right.
Then yes, authoritarianism is never a good thing.
No.
And there is no joy in communism.
That is true.
No joy.
No joy. All right, folks. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks for listening. God
care.
bless.